Well, hi, everyone. Again, it's Jann Scott, and today we're going to talk with Mark Wallach. He is a Boulder City Council person, and he's running for the third time. So, Mark, welcome to the program, and welcome to Boulder Channel 1.
Pleasure to be here.
Well, this is just a little bit. This is the first time you and I've talked, and this is a one-on-one. So, who are you? Where did you come from, and how long have you been in Boulder?
Well, I've been in Boulder. I moved here in 2014. I bought a house out here in about 2011, but it took time to renovate it and sell my place in New York. I used to live in New York. I was there for 39 years. I was a real estate developer for a number of years. Before that, I was an attorney. I had an eclectic career. I spent a couple of years at Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs. Wow, that's big. That's like doesn't get any bigger than Goldman Sachs.
Well, I think if you Google
Yeah.
worst employee ever at Goldman Sachs, my picture may show up. It was not a profession that I was well suited for, and I was there for a couple of years and gone. Before that, I was a speechwriter, as you know, for Senator Bill Bradley for a while, and for several other candidates who ran for office back east. And that's most of it.
How the heck did you get a job as a speechwriter for Bill Bradley? That's pretty impressive.
Well, it's actually a funny story. I was in law school at Columbia, and I had a professor who was teaching an interesting course about how to write about the law for non-lawyers. And his name was Jeff Greenfield. He had previously worked as a speechwriter for Bobby Kennedy. And he was asked by the Bradley team to write some speeches, and he said, "I don't have any time, but I've got just the guy for you." And he came to me and said, "Would you be interested in doing this?" And I said, "Well, certainly." And I went to visit them, and they said, "Well, have you ever done this before?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well, sure."
Of course you did.
I had no idea what I was doing, and we kind of winged it from there. It was an interesting gig because he is so bright. He is such a substantive, intelligent individual. He was not a great giver of speeches,
Yeah.
but he was just insanely bright. And if we had more like him in public service, we would be in a much better place. But
Let's talk about Boulder and the city of Boulder. And
sure.
I went through your website. You have a bunch of different issues. So we'll just fire through these and see where what's the number one issue facing the city of Boulder as you're concerned.
It hasn't been, it doesn't appear to be that during this campaign, but for me, it's still public safety. I am very concerned that we're going to lose a lot of business due to conditions on the mall. We're going to create terrible impressions at the Sundance Film Festival because of what goes on the Boulder Creek path. And it is my view that maintaining public safety is the most fundamental obligation of any government.
Well, listen, I have to tell you something. I agree with you, and I have been beating the drum on this for 40 years, and the city still cannot move on it. So here it is. We have all these people camping along the Boulder Creek path and everywhere else. They have bike chop shops. There are drug addicts out there actively shooting dope on the paths, and the city will not clean that up. They won't move those people out of there. Every year it gets worse. What the hell is wrong?
I think there is some hope. We're in the process of adopting a new policy about homelessness, and there are several components of that I think are going to be helpful. The first is an emphasis on diversion, so that when people come off the bus, we're going to meet them and say, "Look, you can't camp here, but we will help you rejoin friends or family elsewhere in the country, and we'll pay for that travel."
Do you actually think that's going to work?
I think some of it's going to work, yes.
You can't force them to do it.
No, we're not going to force them to do it. Then in combination with that, the second tranche, as it were, of that policy is to more effectively enforce our camping ban. They now call it, after this report called the Clutch Report, they now call it rough sleeping. I don't know why.
How did we ever get to that? How did we ever get to this?
Big,
And when I moved to Boulder in 1974, we'd had homeless people, but what's going on down there now, it did not really exist day to day.
look, we are a couple of comments. First, we are not experiencing anything that major cities around the country are experiencing, and they haven't figured it out either. Okay, there are a lot of smart people in New York and in Boston and in
Yeah.
LA, et cetera, and they haven't figured it out. So it's a little presumptuous for us to think that we will have the magic sauce to figure that problem out.
Do you know in 1971, we had thousands of homeless people all over Boulder, and eventually we escorted them out of the city. There were riots on the streets, and we actually did what you're talking about. We bused people to Arizona in 1971.
But that's not something this city today is going to do. So you just have to, deal with that reality that we are essentially have a very compassionate electorate, and they're not going to want us to do that. But if, as part of a larger policy of dealing with homelessness, we enforce the ban on camping, and there's another reason we should do that, and I'll get to that in a minute. We can reduce the number of people who are here. In addition, we're moving all services from Central Park, where it's easy to get fed and then go to the mall and spend the day.
Ruined Central Park, the band shell. You can't go down there as a family.
We're moving all of those services out to the shelter.
Is that gonna happen?
Yes, I do think it's going to happen.
Okay.
And if that happens, people will stay out there. They'll be more interested, I believe, in connecting with services, and it'll have a positive impact. Not that it will cure the problem.
Do you know that I know people on the bus line going up Broadway to the shelter who've gotten beaten up by homeless drug addicts going to the shelter? Even the bus line and Broadway isn't safe.
Look, this is a major problem. It is a major problem for every city, okay? And we are doing our best to address it. And I think the things I've just described to you will help address it. We're also putting a greater emphasis on family homelessness. And I think that is long overdue.
Do we have a lot of homeless families?
Not that many, but the ones we have deserve to be serviced. They deserve to be cared for, okay? Because those are people who live here, they have roots here, and they have fallen into homelessness. And of all the people who are homeless, that's where our greatest moral obligation lies in terms of providing service and trying to help them.
Let me interject here.
No, let me just finish my thought.
Okay, go ahead.
The one last issue about rough sleeping, as they call it, or just camping on open space, is a new issue in town. And it's really arisen in the last 3 years after the Marshall Fire. And that is wildfire resilience and the danger of having people camping on our open space with propane stoves and lit cigarettes is massive. So we're doing this for ourselves as well as doing it for them. And we have to have that population not be camping out on our vulnerable open space areas. So there are a number of things coming together to make this a priority program.
All right, let me interject here. Homeless, thank you. It's fun talking with you, incidentally. So I like this engaging. We need that more. So I know a lot about homelessness. It's something that I've been studying for over 40 years. And I had the opportunity, I used to do a radio program called Addiction Free Radio, where we brought everybody in who dealt with addiction and with homelessness. And one person was Bob Cote, who ran Step Denver. And then we went on the streets with him, and their model at Step Denver was to take different homeless people, in this particular case, men, because 75% of homeless are adult males in a dominant addiction, either alcohol or drugs, bring them into this shelter. And then when you go there, you get a bed, you have to pay your way, you have to get a job, you have to clean up, get sober, go to meetings there and go to AA meetings, and have drug testing and alcohol testing. So they have like 300 or 400 people down there who cycle in and out of there, and they eventually get back into the mainstream of society. So the problem with homeless, the so-called homeless, is they are adult males in a dominant addiction, and you have to treat the drugs and the alcohol first. And you can't have a wet shelter like Boulder Shelter, because all people do is go out there and they go back out onto the street, try to get money to buy drugs or alcohol. So the problem, the number one problem, is the addiction, drugs and alcohol. We have to treat that first.
You're not wrong, but a couple of things I want to share with you. The state of Colorado is somewhere between 44th and 48th in terms of the amount of money they provide for treatment of mental illness and addiction. They do almost nothing for us. Okay, so the state is not going to help us. Obviously, in today's culture, you can't count on anything coming from the federal government. And the county is also strapped for cash. So we have a problem. We recognize the problem. That is,
the thing is Step 13 or Step Denver is self-supporting. It doesn't cost the taxpayer a dime. Just like Alcoholics Anonymous, we have 2,000 volunteers in Boulder, and the city or the county won't use them, and they're free. So anyways, let's move to another topic.
Sure.
Which could be, well, let's talk about this. We have the Trump administration is targeted Boulder and other cities because we are a sanctuary city. And my contention is that they're going after NIST, NCAR, and NOAA. That's going to be about, I don't know, 10,000 jobs, 15,000 jobs. They're going to take that money and close those labs, and about a $2 billion bind into the city of Boulder.
Well, let me respond to that. First, I don't think the closure of those facilities is because we were a sanctuary city. And in fact, on the last sanctuary city list, we weren't there. We were not included. Okay.
In the federal government?
Yeah. And
well, that would be good.
That is good. And we looked at it and said, great, that's terrific. But I think the closure of those facilities is because the administration is anti-science more than anything else. And those facilities would point out the effects of climate change, and they don't want to hear about the effects of climate change.
George W. Bush wanted to close that facility, and it took Bill Clinton to go in and talk to him. And one of the things that, in my understanding, is that those facilities are there for nuclear launches. NCAR was built not because of weather or science. It was built to track nuclear rockets in the ionosphere. And NOAA was created to map the oceans for our nuclear subs and nuclear attack subs. All very top secret, but to me, that's the primary reason all three of those facilities exist. National defense.
They do other things today, and the administration doesn't want to hear about it. They just don't. They have politicized science to a degree that is
somebody's going to have to talk to them. Do you know these kids? Do you know Trump? You're from New York. You might know him. I don't know.
I knew of him for many, many years.
Yeah.
And but I can't say that I know him.
Somebody has got to get to him and say, national defense, we need these things.
I don't think he is responsive to much personal lobbying. I don't disagree with you. but because they also do the science of climate, he is entirely unresponsive to that. He doesn't want to hear that there might be any climate change. He doesn't want to hear.
He used to, he was a bit, when he was a Democrat, he was right in there.
He's not in there now, and he's dancing to a different tune. And I find that astonishing. I mean, science is science, and it's and science produces facts.
I just think you guys in the city are going to have to talk about national defense and not talk about science, because I agree he's never going to buy it. I want to bring up something else: snow plowing. It used to be that here in where I live in North Boulder, I have a house, and we would get snow this deep, and I called the city and they said, call this number. And I would call that number and I'd say, can I get on your list to have a truck come through and make a pass? Well, they used to do it. Even a big truck would come through and plow the snow out here in our cul-de-sac. And then I started calling like a year or two ago and they stopped. Nope, no more. We have little truck. We can't get there. I'm like, what are you talking about? You have tons of trucks. You have a lot of plows. Why the heck can't you plow the cul out?
Listen, I don't know if you followed it. I got into a major dispute with the transportation department last winter over some of their policies regarding plowing, especially on steep streets. They no longer plow if it's 3 inches or less. No problem. No problem for me. I live on 15th Street. I can get out, go in low gear, get onto baseline, and I'm good to go. But behind me is a street called Bellevue. And it goes up, and when you get 3 inches of snow that solidifies into ice, you have a slalom. You have a ski run. I've actually seen people coming down that street, holding on to the bumper of a car, snowboarding. Okay, and it's a perfect run. I objected to that policy. I sent out hotlines on that policy. I at least got them to agree that they have the flexibility to adjust to conditions and adapt to them, and perhaps when they see something like this, they can address it with steeper streets.
I wish you'd go back there and get them to let the trucks come through areas where I live.
It's purely a budgetary matter.
Yeah.
And for me, it's an important budgetary matter. And that is also, excuse me, the kind of thing we need to be doing. I am very much about performing basic functions of government. Plow the streets, repair the streets. We have 2 firehouses that are operating out of single-family homes about 50 years old. It's a disgrace. And, we need to get them out of there.
We have that nice new one that was built. They just won an award. Boy, that is some firehouse.
Well, I think that may have been a little over the top, and I don't want to have that happen again.
Oh, really? Okay.
Basic firehouse would be just fine. Thank you. Give people, adequate accommodations and adequate facilities.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we need to repeat that. That was a $35 million firehouse, and really a little.
With electric fire trucks.
But the larger point is, do your basic functions. Okay, repair the streets, plow the streets.
Do we had a kid back in 1980, 81, or 82. His name was White, and he got hit by a car crossing the street on Pine Street right in front of the school that he was going to, and it killed him. And the city went crazy, and they changed all of their snow plowing policies to make sure that streets are sanded, stop signs are sanded, all of that, because of one boy getting killed. And his parents went to city council and said, you killed my kid because of your street plowing policies. And you're kind of back at it again. We're headed down that path again.
Listen, as I said, I don't mind spending for exotic programs.
Yeah.
Have the money.
Yeah.
But first, do what you have to do.
Well, don't we have
basic obligations?
Don't we have 350? What are we doing with? I read 31 public and PIOs. What are we? It only takes one or two, maybe or three, but
No.
not 30. What?
No. One of the things you have to remember, and that this is a characteristic of this city,
Yeah,
is that we are fanatics, absolute fanatics for public engagement on every issue.
yeah.
If we stopped doing the public engagement and fired all those people, a good portion of the citizenry of Boulder would be jumping up in alarm and saying, you didn't consult us, you didn't talk to us, you didn't do any engagement on issue after issue.
Well, that's been going on since I moved here, but go ahead.
For better or worse, that is our culture. You have to talk to people. You have
We
to
need
consult with
30 PIOs.
you know how many programs we have and you know how many departments we have? It is not, this has become
Do we
a,
have too many departments and programs?
we might, and we ought to be looking at that all the time. We just, in effect, dismantled the cultural vitality department and put its functions elsewhere where they're better, going to be better served. And really, we moved out, we have 6 positions that are not going to be filled. So we did that in one department. And
Look, I've been in public
we can do
information
that elsewhere.
my
We can-
whole life. I can't believe that you could run an entire newspaper with 31 PIOs. A really good one.
Listen, I've explained why that occurs, and that's just become a familiar refrain on social media. How can we have that many people? We have that many people because that's what people want.
Okay, I get it. All right, I
don't need that many in Albuquerque, I can assure you. But in Boulder, we do it a little differently, and you have to recognize that's the difference between Boulder and a lot of other cities.
Okay, here's another topic. Housing, we have to have a house for every single person who wants to live in Boulder. What do you say to that?
Well, we're not going to. I mean, there are certain realities that we tend not to grasp. And I was a developer and I understand a bit about development economics. The price of land in Boulder is $2 to $3 million for an acre, $650,000 to $750,000 for a 6,000 square foot lot in the downtown area, maybe higher. And you're not going to build on most of that property anything other than market rate or high-end residences.
Right.
What we need and what we can't get at the moment is middle income family housing. So that what people do now is they move into some of these market rate apartment buildings for a few years, a couple, and when they want to raise a family, they leave. They're going to Longmont, they're going to Lafayette, they're going to Lyons. And we rely upon the private sector to do our housing here. What has that gotten us? In the last 5 years, more than 90% of the housing built in this city has been market rate, what I call stacked flats, big apartment buildings.
Yeah.
Very expensive, market rate, and small. 900.
It looks like Brooklyn.
And I come from Brooklyn, so I know, okay, what it looks like. And we're not getting the housing that we need doing what we're doing. So when people say that's what we need to house everybody, we are not going to house everybody. We are not going to dismantle our open space to build housing. Put that on the ballot. I invite anybody to put that on the ballot and watch as you lose 90% to 10%. We value our open space. We cherish it. Height limitations, put it on the ballot. Same thing. And even if you won, what happens if you lift the height limitations? You're going to get more middle income housing? Of course not. The most valuable real estate in any building are the top floors.
So what do we do to solve this problem?
We have to find, there really is only one way to create what I call social housing. You need to have government-owned land that can be used by the private sector to build housing. And if you own that land, you can sell it for 10 cents on the dollar to a developer in exchange for an enforceable commitment to build the housing that we want at the prices that we want.
You mentioned Boulder Airport.
We just lost a court case with respect to the airport, but it was procedural. It does
Right.
not mean we lost our argument that we're trying to establish that the airport is ours and that we can determine what to do with it. We have certain covenants that are not going to expire until 2040. But
So we could build affordable housing out there.
I would build nothing but middle income, because there's a distinction between affordable housing and middle income housing. We are doing great on affordable housing. Boulder Housing Partners operates more than 2,000 units, and they are the largest residential landlord outside of CU in this town. We're doing great. What we don't have is deed restricted, for sale, middle income housing. You know how many units we've built in the last 10 years?
No.
10. I'm sorry, that's wrong. 10 years, 45 units.
Okay.
45 in 10 years. That's pathetic. We don't have capacity to do this.
Boulder used to be a no growth, slow growth city. What happened to that and the Danish plan?
Well, it has ceased to become operative because we have also encouraged businesses to relocate here. We want to be a center of medical research. We want to be a center of quantum research. We are building large facilities for that purpose, and we're bringing in jobs as a result.
What another question I have is, why haven't we utilized the IBM plant? That plant sitting out there, it used to employ 5,000 to 8,000 people. It's empty. Why can't we take that over and move these companies there?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I'll be very candid with you. I know the facility, but I don't know the answer to that. But if we could buy that, that would be the kind of government-owned land that would be susceptible to my idea of, we will give it to you cheap. We're giving you cheap land, Mr. Developer.
Yeah.
Free land, almost. But now you have to return the favor by building middle income housing.
We have crowded down, I mean, right where Whole Foods is down, and we put Google in there, and it is a giant mess to get through that whole area. And that always worries me when we try to build, facilities for companies and crowd the city.
Well, it's a funny thing that you should say that. People are always, on the other side, are always saying, we need greater density. I'm not quite sure what the density is supposed to accomplish, but I have done some research, and I want to point out that there are 314 municipalities in the United States with a population above 100,000. We are just about in the top 1/3 for density. We are denser than Houston. We are denser than Dallas, denser than Cincinnati, about the same, maybe a little less than San Diego. We are dense. We are not some sort of suburban, paradise.
I'll tell you where density came from. The people started writing books about urbanization and urban density and building small cities within cities. San Francisco was the first, and then our planning department, we had people in there, they started reading these books, and they were, let's have density, no cars, everybody can bike around, and it'll be great. And I'm like, oh no.
Well, and then reality intrudes. Okay. People are not going to go on electric bikes to pick up 2 bags of groceries from Whole Foods when it's 15 degrees and a howling wind in February. Sorry, not going to happen. There is still a use for cars. Now, maybe we can transition into all EVs. That's the low-hanging fruit. Maybe we can get people to transition into EVs rather than gas-powered cars. But to get rid of cars, that is not going to happen.
I wrote an article, did some research on the amount of automobiles that are registered in Boulder County. Thousands and thousands. People in Boulder County love their cars, and they're going to drive them. And the bicycle crowd, which represents about 2% of the population, they want to take away, all the driving. And I thought, that's never going to happen. We have another problem, and it's older senior citizens. I'm at the leading edge of the boomers. I'll be 80 in a couple months. And you know, I could barely walk around. I mean, I need to drive my car to Whole Foods. And
It is not going to go away, no matter what the planning department envisions, or or any other department in the city envisions. It's not going to go away. And the concept that we will be a carless city is absurd. You know, we're 27 square miles, and people are not going to be going there on little scooters and e-bikes. It's a great thing if you can ride one. I live at the top of Baseline, and I like to tell people, if I'm a little bit past my sell-by date in terms of bikes, and I tell people, you know what? If I try to bike now, I'm either going to die going down Baseline or trying to come up Baseline. But
I have 5 bikes in my garage. My biking days are over.
It's so for a lot of people, and so
Yep.
we need to have a more realistic view
That's right.
of what to do. And I know we want to achieve, you know, greater environmental, let's say cleanliness. We want to reduce our GHGs. That can happen if you convert the cars to EVs over time and find ways to promote that. You know, that will help.
One thing I would like to see more park benches. The city took up all the benches because homeless people were camping on them. But now if you're a senior citizen and you want to walk out on the paths, you need a bench to stop and rest on, and they're all gone.
You know, I have a similar problem with respect to bus stops. If you want people to take a bus,
Oh, yeah,
you have to provide a little bit of shelter
of
and get out of
course.
the wind and a place to sit down. You cannot ask people in bad weather conditions or in 98-degree summer conditions to just stand there.
I'm 28th and J Road, 2 bus stops out there, no protection for people. The kids or seniors who are going to ride the
Gotta
bus.
have it. You gotta have it. And it's just something that we've got to focus on if we want to ever have a functional mass transit system, which I doubt we can get. You know, I'm familiar with mass transit, and every mass transit system with which I am familiar relies heavily upon subsidies from the feds
Yeah.
and the state. We're not getting it from the feds, and we're not going to get it from the state. So, you know, the kind of density you would need to have a tax base adequate to fund that kind of system is way, way beyond anything we've ever imagined.
I want to talk to you about the city finances. What is our budget? 550,
520 this year.
$520 million. So are we broke? What's going on?
We are not broke. Most of the money that has been moved around this year is coming from capital improvement, excuse me, capital improvement projects with, you know, minor or lesser degrees of reallocation in our general fund budget. And we have the 2026 proposed budget, which we have passed, deals with that. We will have a balanced budget. Certain things will not get done this year, mostly again in the capital improvement area. I am very, very concerned that we pass the extension, by the way, of the CCRS, the infrastructure budget, because we have over $300 million of infrastructure projects, and not vanity projects, real projects that we need, and we have no way to pay for them. And the only way it gets done is if we can continue to get the revenue from CCRS and bond against that revenue. You know, this is a year in which I think people are going to be fairly anti-tax, and I'm just hoping that we don't get swept out.
Well, Boulder's never been anti-tax.
This year may be a little different. I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I mean, there's, you know,
What are some of the infrastructure projects that we need to do? I know our bridges have been dangerous for some time, but
bridges, terrible, terrible bridges.
Yeah.
Street repair we need more money for street repair. 2 firehouses. The East Boulder Rec Center needs a refresh or renovation that's approximately $46 million. The South Boulder Rec Center is past its useful life. It probably needs replacement. The police department building either needs a very, very substantial renovation or replacement. And it goes on and on and on. We have, so many of these projects that are out there.
We don't have a shooting range in Boulder.
Well, I'm not. Are you surprised?
Well, no, but I think we should have a shooting range with a range master and all of that, one that's responsibly run. I mean, the police department doesn't even have a shooting range, do they?
I don't know.
Mm.
But they need a professional modern headquarters. They don't have
Yeah.
it. So right there, I've articulated well over $100 million of projects, maybe close to $200 million of projects. And we can bond against the extension up to $260 million. That gets us a long way, okay? And we can really, I lived in New York in 1975, when infrastructure was last on the list of priorities because they had such difficult economic conditions. And, back then, subway cars once a month at least were running off the tracks, creating disruptions. Buildings were falling on. I had my windshield cracked by a piece of the Brooklyn Bridge, which fell off because I parked in a lot right next to the bridge. Boom. It was a nightmare. And that has sensitized me to the need to keep your assets up to date. You have to. And if you fall behind, you never catch up.
I have a question for you before we finish here. So is there any chance that they'll make you mayor this year?
Zero.
Zero. I mean, it sounds like you should be mayor. You talk like mayor.
I have no intention to run for mayor, and the reason is, I don't think it's a job that would really suit me well.
Okay.
I'm an advocate. A mayor is somebody who has to herd the cats and be, very calm and collected and handle everybody. I'm an advocate, and I would not want to give up my ability to be an advocate just for a title, and to give a couple of speeches and to have Governor Polis call me every once in a while.
Oh my God. All right. Well, listen, we are out of time for this. Mark Wallach is running for Boulder City Council for the third time. If you look below, there's a link to his website. You can find out more about him. Thanks very much for being here today with me. I appreciate it a lot.